Hello students, today we will study applications of adsorption. So what are the uses of adsorption? Number one is production of high vacuum. So we will see that if you are having a closed vessel containing air, then we can absorb all the traces of air by charcoal, and thereafter we can evacuate it by a vacuum pump to give a very high vacuum. So initially we will see that in the closed vessel, if several gases are there, then in that case, by keeping charcoal, most of the gases can be adsorbed on the surface of the charcoal, and whatever remaining traces of gases are there, they can be removed by connecting this vessel with vacuum pump, so that a very high vacuum can be created. Second application is in gas masks. So gas mask is a device which consists of activated charcoal and is usually used for breathing in coal mines to adsorb poisonous gases. So before entering the coal mines, on the mouth we have to wear gas masks which contains activated charcoal, so that when we enter inside the coal mines, poisonous gases will be absorbed by the charcoal, and thereafter air free from poisonous gases will enter our nose. Third application of adsorption is control of humidity. So in order to remove the moisture and to control humidity, silica gel and alumina gel are used as adsorbents. Fourth application is removal of coloring matter from solutions. So if a solution contains colored impurities, then they can be removed by using animal charcoal. Fifth application is in heterogeneous catalysis. In order to increase the rate of reaction, reactants are adsorbed on the surface of the catalyst. So solid catalyst is there, which will provide a surface to the gaseous reactant to react with each other, and so the rate of reaction will increase. So some examples of these are manufacture of ammonia from nitrogen and hydrogen in the presence of iron as a catalyst. So here we will see that the physical state of reactants is gases, while the physical state of catalyst is solid. So here the physical state of reactants and catalyst is different. So this is an example of heterogeneous catalysis. So here iron provide a surface for the reaction to occur between nitrogen and hydrogen. Another example is contact process for the manufacturing of sulfuric acid. So in that process, sulfur dioxide is treated with oxygen in the presence of vanadium pentoxide V2O5 to form sulfur trioxide. So that is the second example of heterogeneous catalysis. Third example is, in order to convert vegetable oil into vegetable ghee, hydrogen is passed through vegetable oil in the presence of nickel catalyst. So that is known as hydrogenation of vegetable oil to form vegetable ghee. So in all these heterogeneous catalysis, adsorption phenomena takes place. Number 6, separation of inert gases. Generally, if we have a mixture of gases, so in order to separate them, we can use activated coconut charcoal. So when you are using coconut charcoal, we can separate a mixture of inert gases, that is noble gases. So if you are having helium, neon, argon, krypton, so such type of gaseous mixture is there, then it can be separated by adsorption on coconut charcoal at different temperatures. Seventh application is in curing diseases. So if you want to cure diseases, so in that case we have to kill germs by using drugs. So in that case, drugs will get adsorbed on the surface of germs. Suppose here we are having germs, and if we use drugs, so they will adsorb on the surface of germs and kill them. Eighth application, in froth flotation process. In this process, sulfide ores are separated from impurities and impurities are generally earthly matter such as sand, clay and other earthly matter. So those impurities can be separated from sulfide ore by using pine oil and frothing agent. So by using pine oil and frothing agent, we can separate sulfide ores from impurities. Now, adsorption indicators. Generally, precipitates such as silver halides are white in color, so it is difficult to observe the precipitates. So in that case, such precipitates adsorb some dyes like eosine, fluorescein, etc. And because of the adsorption, of such dyes on the surface of the precipitates, a characteristic color is produced at the end point of titration. So here we will see that precipitate produces a characteristic color at the end point. For example, if fluorescein is adsorbed on the surface of the silver halide precipitate, you will get green fluorescence or green color, and if eosine is adsorbed, it will produce red color. Number 10, 10th application, last application, chromatographic analysis. Chromatographic analysis is based on the phenomenon of adsorption, and it finds a number of applications in analytical and industrial fields. So we will see that different type of chromatographic techniques such as adsorption chromatography, in which we are using burette as a column. So in that column chromatography, we use silica gel or alumina, which is acting as adsorbent, and on the surface of that adsorbent, different components of the mixture are separated on the basis of difference in their adsorption capacity. So that is the application of adsorption in chromatography. Now our next topic is catalysis. So 1/3 of the chapter is already finished. Now we are starting with catalysis. In order to prepare oxygen in laboratory, potassium chlorate, 2 moles of potassium chlorate are heated to form 2 moles of potassium chloride and 3 moles of oxygen. So here we will see that it is a decomposition reaction, which is a very slow reaction. So and the temperature required over here is 653 to 873 Kelvin, which is very high temperature. But in presence of manganese dioxide as a catalyst, the same reaction takes place in the temperature range of 473 to 633 Kelvin. That means with the help of this manganese dioxide catalyst, the rate of reaction is increased, and so the reaction can take place in the presence at a very low temperature. So here we will see that whatever amount of manganese dioxide is added, it remains unchanged with respect to its mass and composition. So at the end of the reaction, the catalyst is recovered in its original form. In a similar manner, the rates of a number of chemical reactions can be changed by the presence of foreign substances, and these foreign substances which increases the rate of chemical reactions are called catalysts. The first catalyst which was studied by Berzelius in 1835, he suggested the term catalyst for such substances which accelerate the rate of a chemical reaction and themselves remain chemically and quantitatively unchanged after the reaction are known as catalysts, and the phenomenon is known as catalysis. So those reactions which are occurring in the presence of catalysts are called catalysis. Now there are two substances except catalyst, and they are promoters and poisons. So along with catalyst, two more substances are promoters and poisons. Now what are promoters? Promoters are those substances that enhance, or we can say increase, the activity of a catalyst. While poisons decrease the activity of catalysts. For example, in Haber's process, for the manufacture of ammonia, iron is used as catalyst, while molybdenum is used as a promoter for iron. So molybdenum will enhance the activity of iron. Now our next topic is homogeneous and heterogeneous catalysis. So first of all, let us see homogeneous catalysis. When the reactants, products and the catalyst are in the same phase, or we can say in the same physical state, then the process is said to be homogeneous catalysis. For example, in case of lead chamber process, the reactants sulfur dioxide and oxygen, which are in gaseous state, gets converted into sulfur trioxide, which is again in the gaseous state, in the presence of catalyst nitric oxide NO, which is again in gaseous state. So here reactants, products and the catalyst all are in the same physical state. So this is an example of homogeneous catalysis. The second example is hydrolysis of methyl acetate. Methyl acetate, that is CH3 COOCH3, which is in liquid state, reacts with water, which is again in the liquid state, in the presence of dilute hydrochloric acid, which is again in liquid state, to form acetic acid and methanol. And acetic acid and methanol are water soluble, so they are in the aqueous state. Liquid state and aqueous state are taken to be same physical states. That's why this is an example of homogeneous catalysis. The third example is, if we have sugar solution C12, so we will do hydrolysis of sucrose, or we can say hydrolysis of sugar. The sugar, that is C12H22O11, which is water soluble, so aqueous solution we will take, and it is hydrolyzed with water, which is in liquid state, in the presence of dilute H2SO4, which is again in liquid state, to form glucose and fructose. Glucose and fructose are water soluble, so that's why both are in aqueous state. So one of the product C6H12O6 is glucose, and second product C6H12O6 is fructose. So we can see that this is also an example of homogeneous catalysis. Now let us talk about heterogeneous catalysis. The catalytic process in which the reactants and the catalyst are in different physical states is known as heterogeneous catalysis. For example, oxidation of sulfur dioxide into sulfur trioxide by using platinum. So here we will see that sulfur dioxide is in gaseous state, oxygen is in gaseous state, but the catalyst platinum is in solid state. So physical state of reactants and catalyst is different, and ultimately you will get sulfur trioxide which is in gaseous state. Second example is in Haber's process, the reactants nitrogen and hydrogen are in gaseous state, while the catalyst iron is in solid state. So reactants and catalyst are in different physical states, and finally we will get ammonia gas. The third example is Ostwald process to produce nitric acid. In Ostwald process, in the first step we take 4 moles of ammonia and 5 moles of oxygen in the presence of platinum catalyst. So here we can see that ammonia and oxygen reactants are in gaseous state, while platinum is in solid state, to form 4 moles of nitric oxide and 6 moles of water, which is in gaseous state at high temperature. So in all these examples, the reactants and catalysts are in different physical states. Now our next topic is adsorption theory of heterogeneous catalysis. This theory explains the mechanism of heterogeneous catalysis. The old theory, known as adsorption theory of catalysis, was that the reactants in gaseous phase or in solutions are adsorbed on the surface of solid catalyst. The increase in the concentration of reactants on the surface increases the rate of reaction. So adsorption being an exothermic process, the heat of adsorption is utilized in enhancing the rate of the reaction. So this was the old theory, where it was assumed that on the surface of catalyst, if the amount of reactant increases, then the rate of reaction increases. And the reason behind it is that when the reactant is adsorbed on the surface of catalyst, heat is released, and this heat of adsorption is responsible for the increase in the rate of reaction. But now we will talk about modern adsorption theory, which involves intermediate compound formation. So if we talk about modern adsorption theory instead of old adsorption theory, so according to this theory, let us understand this theory by taking one imaginary diagram. Okay, suppose here we are having a catalyst. So here we will see that here the ends of the catalyst are free. Okay, so they are known as free valencies. The surface of the catalyst are active sites. So they are able to adsorb the reactant molecules. So suppose we are having two reactant molecules A and B. So in that case, initially the reactant molecules will diffuse to the surface of the catalyst. That is the first point. So first, there are 5 steps. First step is reactants will diffuse to the surface of catalyst. That means they will come closer to the catalyst. Second step is adsorption of reactant molecules on the surface of catalyst. So here we will see that reactant A and B will adsorb on the surface of catalyst, that is on the active site. Third step is formation of bond. Formation of bond between A and B. So when bond formation takes place between A and B, so that is called intermediate. So formation of intermediate takes place. So bond formation takes place between A and B. So that is our fourth step. Then the fifth step is so we will see that first step was that A and B diffuse to the surface of catalyst. Second was adsorption of A and B on the surface of catalyst. Third is formation of bond intermediate between A and B. Now fourth is breaking of bond between A and B. So that is called desorption. So desorption of product molecules. So that is the breaking of bond between A and B. Between AB and the catalyst surface. So breaking of bond will take place between AB and catalyst surface. So we will see that new bond AB is already formed between A and B, and they leave the catalyst surface. So that is the fourth step. And the fifth step is diffusion of AB product away from the catalyst. So product AB will start moving away from the surface of catalyst. So here we can see that the catalyst which was taken initially, its composition and structure remains unchanged. So what will happen? Now the active site or the surface of catalyst is free for the second reactant molecules to get adsorb on the surface of catalyst. So we will see that as catalyst remains unused and it does not participate in the reaction, it only makes the reaction fast. So even small quantities of catalyst are sufficient for the reaction to occur. But here we will see that what is the limitation of modern adsorption theory, that it does not explain the action of catalytic promoters and the catalytic poisons. So it only explains the activity of catalyst or the role of catalyst. It does not explain the role of catalytic promoters and the catalytic poisons. Now our next topic is important features of solid catalysts. So in solid catalysis, what are the important features? The first is activity. The activity of a catalyst depends upon the strength of chemisorption to a large extent. The reactants must get adsorbed strongly on the surface of a catalyst to become active. However, they must not get adsorbed so strongly that they are immobilized and other reactants are left with no space on the catalyst surface for adsorption. So here we will see that The reactant molecule should get adsorbed strongly with the surface of catalyst, but not that much strongly that they may not give space to the next reactant molecules to get adsorbed on the surface of catalyst. It has been found that for hydrogenation reaction, the catalytic activity increases from group 5 to group 11 of the periodic table. So all those metals which are present from group 5 to group 11, so when we move from left to right from group 5 to group 11, the activity of the catalytic activity of metals goes on increasing. So maximum activity is shown by those metals which are present in group 7 to 9. So group 7 to 9 elements are having maximum activity for the catalytic process. For example, if we talk about formation of water from hydrogen and oxygen, so 2H2 plus O2 gives 2H2O. So this takes place in the presence of platinum catalyst. So here platinum catalyst is present in the modern periodic table in the range of group 7 and 9. Now second feature is selectivity. Number B is selectivity. The selectivity of a catalyst is its ability to direct a reaction to yield a particular product selectively when under the same reaction conditions many products are possible. For example, if we talk about the reaction of water gas, that is a mixture of carbon monoxide and hydrogen, so water gas can give different products. So depending upon which product is required to be formed, we have to select a catalyst. So that is called selectivity of catalyst. Okay, suppose from water gas, that is a mixture of CO and H2, if we have to produce formaldehyde, that is HCHO, then in that case we will use copper as a catalyst. So by using copper as a catalyst, water gas will produce formaldehyde. But if we take other catalysts such as a mixture of copper, zinc oxide and chromic oxide, then in that case we are going to get methanol. So here we will see that the ratio of carbon monoxide and hydrogen is different, okay, 1:2. But the reactants are same only. So same reactants in the presence of different catalysts gives different products. So when we are using copper, zinc oxide and Cr2O3, then in that case we will get methanol. And if you take CO plus 3H2 in the presence of nickel catalyst, then in that case we will get a mixture of methane plus water vapor. So different products are obtained in the presence of different catalysts. Now our next topic is shape selective catalysis by zeolites. Now what are zeolites? First of all, let us see what is shape selective catalysis. The catalytic reaction that depends upon the pore structure, or we can say the hole structure, okay, size of the hole of the catalyst, as well as the size of the reactant and product molecules, is called shape selective catalysis. Zeolites are good shape selective catalysts because of their honeycomb like structure. So they are having a structure similar to the शहद का छत्ता, okay, honeycomb. They are microporous aluminosilicates. So very small pores are there of aluminosilicates with three-dimensional network of silicates in which some silicon atoms are replaced by aluminium atoms, giving ALOSI framework. So here we will see that we are having silicate ion SiO4 2 minus, but out of all the silicate ion, some silicon's atoms are replaced by aluminium atoms, so that now we are having two different type of tetrahedral shape. Okay, one is SiO4 4 minus and second is AlO4 5 minus. So here we will see that there will be a common oxygen linkage between aluminium and silicon. So it is forming a honeycomb like structure. The reactions taking place in zeolites depend upon the size and shape of reactant and product molecules, as well as it also depend upon the pore size and the cavities of zeolites. They are found in nature as well as synthesized artificially in the laboratory for catalytic selectivity. Zeolites are being widely used. So these are the applications of zeolites in this paragraph. So first application is they are widely used as a catalyst in petrochemical industries for cracking of hydrocarbons and isomerization. Second use is an important zeolite catalyst used in petroleum industry is ZSM5. So ZSM5 is the zeolite catalyst which is used in petroleum industry. It converts alcohol directly into petrol. The another name of petrol is gasoline. So ZSM5 converts alcohol into petrol by dehydrating them to give a mixture of hydrocarbons. Now next is enzyme catalysis. Enzymes are complex nitrogenous organic compounds which are produced by living plants and animals. So here we will see that enzymes are biocatalysts which are generally produced by living plants and animals. They are actually protein molecules of higher molecular mass and form colloidal solutions in water. They are very effective catalysts. They catalyze numerous reactions, especially those connected with natural processes. Numerous reactions that occur in the bodies of animals and plants to maintain the life process are catalyzed by enzymes. So enzymes are catalyzing numerous life processes such as respiration, digestion, excretion, circulation, and so many processes which are taking place in the living body. So they make the reactions fast. The enzymes are thus termed as biochemical catalysts, and the phenomenon is called biochemical catalysis. Many enzymes have been obtained in pure crystalline state from living cells. However, the first enzyme was synthesized in the laboratory in 1969. The following are some of the examples of enzyme catalyzed reactions. Number 1, inversion of cane sugar. The enzyme invertase converts cane sugar into glucose and fructose. Number 2, conversion of glucose into ethyl alcohol. So for that we use the enzyme zymase. This enzyme zymase converts glucose into ethanol plus carbon dioxide. Third is conversion of starch into maltose. The formula of starch is C6H10O5 n times. So if you take 2 moles of starch and treat it with n moles of water in the presence of enzyme diastase, then we are getting n moles of maltose, that is C12H22O11. Number 4, conversion of maltose into glucose and glucose. When we take the enzyme maltase, okay, so we will see that the name of the enzyme and name of the reactants are same. Whatever is the name of the reactant, at the end instead of OAC we have to write AAC. Okay, so the name of the enzyme always end at AAC. So when we take maltose, that is C12H22O11, and hydrolyze it with water, then we are getting 2 moles of glucose, 2 times C6H12O6. Number 5, decomposition of urea into ammonia and carbon dioxide. So for that we use the enzyme urease. So here you can see that the name of the reactant is urea and the name of the enzyme is urease. So urea is having formula NH2CONH2. When it undergo hydrolysis with water, it forms 2 moles of ammonia plus carbon dioxide. Number 6, in stomach, the enzyme pepsin converts protein into peptides, while in intestine, the pancreatic enzyme trypsin converts protein into amino acids by hydrolysis. Number 7, conversion of milk into curd. So it is an enzymatic reaction brought about by lactobacilli enzyme, which is present in lactobacillus bacteria. So it converts milk into curd. The table shows the summary of whatever we have studied till now. Enzymes are given, their sources are given, and what are the reactions in which these enzymes are used. So this we have already seen. Let us see the sources. The enzyme invertase and zymase are obtained from yeast. The enzyme diastase is obtained from malt, okay, such as from wheat. गेहूं में से मिलेगा, malt में से diastase. Then maltase is obtained from yeast. Urease is obtained from soybean, and pepsin is produced by stomach. Now characteristics of enzyme catalysis. The enzyme catalysis is unique in its efficiency and high degree of specificity. The following are the characteristics of enzyme catalysts. Number 1, most highly efficient. One molecule of an enzyme may transform 1 million molecules of reactants into products in 1 minute. So they are very highly efficient. So they can convert 1 million reactant molecules into product in 1 minute. Highly specific in nature. Each enzyme is specific for a given reaction. That is, one catalyst cannot catalyze more than one reaction. For example, the enzyme urease catalyzes the hydrolysis of urea only, but it cannot be used to catalyze hydrolysis of any other amide. So enzymes are specific for the particular specific reaction. Number 3, they are highly active under optimum temperature. So the rate of enzyme reaction becomes maximum at a fixed temperature, and that fixed temperature is called optimum temperature. The optimum temperature of enzyme ranges from 298 Kelvin to 310 Kelvin. So enzymes are highly active in this temperature range from 298 to 310 Kelvin. Below 298 Kelvin and above 310 Kelvin, the activity of enzyme decreases. As for example, the temperature of human body is 310 Kelvin, which falls in this range from 298 to 310. That's why in our body, enzymes are highly active. Number 4, highly active under optimum pH. The rate of an enzyme catalyzed reactions is maximum at a particular pH called optimum pH, and this pH ranges between 5 to 7. So in this pH range, enzymes are highly reactive. Increasing the activity of enzyme in the presence of activators and coenzymes. The activity of enzyme can be increased in the presence of certain substances known as coenzymes. Generally, coenzymes are non-protein part known as vitamins. So when vitamins are present along with enzyme, they increase the activity of enzyme. And next is activators. Activators are generally metal ions such as Na+, Mn2+, Cobalt2+, Copper2+, etc. These metal ions, when weakly bonded to enzyme molecules, increase their catalytic activity. For example, amylase, which is present in salt, sodium chloride, that is Na+ ions, are catalytically very active. So here we can see that amylase is the enzyme which can be activated by using sodium ions. So it will be acting as an activator for amylase. Number 6 is influence of inhibitors and poisons. Like ordinary catalysts, enzymes are also inhibited or poisoned, means the activity of enzymes can be stopped by the presence of certain substances. and these substances are called inhibitors or poisons. They interact with the active functional groups on the enzyme surface and often reduce or completely destroy the catalytic activity of enzymes. The use of many drugs is related to their action as enzyme inhibitors in the body. So, if we want to stop the activity of those enzymes which are responsible for various diseases in our body, then we can use drugs as enzyme inhibitor. So, they will reduce the activity of enzyme. So, now here mechanism is also given for enzyme catalysis. There are number of cavities present on the surface of enzymes. These cavities are of characteristic shape and possess active groups such as amine, carboxylic acid, SH, that is thiol, alcohol, etc. These are actually the active centers. For example, here enzyme is given, it is given as a shape of a key. Okay? So it is having this active site of enzyme. So they are having active centers on the surface of enzyme particles, the molecules of a reactant or substrate. For example, here substrate is given. This is the active site of the substrate, which have complementary shape, means they are having a shape opposite to the shape of the enzymes, fit into these cavities just like a key fits into the lock. Okay, so they will fit with the substrate. On account of the presence of active groups, an activated complex is formed. So here we can see that first step is reversible. So initially we are taking enzyme and substrate. So enzyme substrate complex is formed, which then decomposes. So it will break down. So here we will see the substrate will break down to form products, and enzyme is again becoming free. Thus the enzyme catalyzed reactions may be considered to proceed in two steps. So this is first step and this is second step. In the first step, enzymes bind with the substrate to form enzyme substrate complex, and this is activated complex. That's why it is shown by asterisk mark. And in step 2, the enzyme substrate complex is getting decomposed to form enzyme and product. Now let us see catalyst in industries. So which catalysts are used for the production of which chemical? Number 1, Haber's process for the manufacture of nitric acid. So in Haber's process, nitrogen reacts with hydrogen to form ammonia. So in the manufacture of ammonia, we are using finely divided iron as an enzyme, and molybdenum is used as promoter. So reaction conditions are pressure is 200 bar and temperature is 723 to 773 Kelvin. So nowadays, instead of using finely divided iron, we also use a mixture of iron oxide, potassium oxide and alumina. Second is Ostwald process for the manufacture of nitric acid. So this reaction occurs in 3 steps. In the first step, ammonia reacts with oxygen to form nitric oxide and water. In the second step, nitric oxide is further oxidized to form nitrogen dioxide. In the third step, nitrogen dioxide reacts with oxygen in the presence of water to form nitric acid. So here platinized asbestos is used as an enzyme. So on the asbestos sheet, platinum is applied and then it is used as a catalyst, and the temperature is 573 Kelvin. Third is contact process for the manufacture of sulfuric acid. In this process, sulfur dioxide is first oxidized to form sulfur trioxide. Then sulfur trioxide reacts with sulfuric acid to form H2S2O7, that is oleum. Then in oleum, if we add water, then it will form 2 moles of sulfuric acid. So in this reaction, the enzyme used is platinized asbestos. So in both of these, platinized asbestos is used as catalyst. Now here, instead of platinized asbestos, we can also use vanadium pentoxide in contact process, that is V2O5, and the temperature is 673 to 723 Kelvin. So you have to remember the different temperatures in the 3 reactions. Here it is 723 to 773, Here it is 573 and here it is 673 to 723. So here we will see that the catalysis topic is over, and here we have finished the second part of this chapter. In the next class we will see the last part of this chapter.